Hey everybody, so welcome to Sketchy Joey. So this first video here is going to be kind of an introduction on how I set up my sketches and kind of how I would study for this back in first year, and then a couple tips, and then we'll work through the anterolateral system, which is the pain and temp from the body system. So first of all, whenever I'm starting a sketch, the first thing I'll do is I draw out 5 or 6 boxes just like this. I label them cortex, midbrain, pons, medulla, and then depending on how complicated the spinal cord is in the structure, I'll do maybe 1 or 2 spinal cord structures. From there, then I draw a very simple just representation so I kind of know what part I'm in. So here's a simple spinal cord with kind of the X in the middle, medulla with a bit of fourth ventricle, pons I'll just throw on some cerebellar peduncles. Midbrain I'll put in the Mickey Mouse ears, and then in the diencephalon and cortex I'll draw the cortex out here, and then the thalamus. So that just kind of helps me orient. So then from there I do that, and then all I'll do is, depending on which structure I'm doing, I just add the key components to it. I do this after I've taken those components and kind of memorized where they are on the actual cross sections. So for example, looking at the anterolateral system, I know that a couple systems I'm going to need. I'm going to need to know where my Lissaris fasciculus is. I'm going to need to know where my anterior white commissure is. Of course, where my anterolateral system or spinothalamic tract is. And then also, I want to be able to follow that spinothalamic tract up through the brainstem as it moves more laterally. So I saw it moving up in the medulla. Now I'll see it over here a little more laterally. In the midbrain, it becomes even more lateral and dorsal. And then finally, in the diencephalon, of course, I'll need to know the thalamus. You can't differentiate between VPL and VPM thalamus, but it is important to know that the VPL is what we're using here. So again, that's kind of how I approach this. Is I'll go memorize all the structures on here so that then I can just draw a very simple schematic, which I can easily reproduce over and over on a whiteboard and really not worry about it getting too messy. So then without further ado, let's walk through the anterolateral system. So anterolateral system, as I said, is kind of pain and temp, crew touch from everywhere in the body. So some spinal cord tracts will do either upper extremity or lower extremity. Anterolateral system is for everywhere. So I'll just have this one coming from the foot. So what happens is you feel pain in your foot, and then it will travel up through a dorsal root until it hits, or through a spinal nerve until it hits the first cell body, which is my dorsal root ganglion. The dorsal root ganglion, then it will enter this structure, just book out already, called Lissaris fasciculus, found just behind the dorsal horns. And before synapsing at all, it always ascends 1 to 3 levels. So I'll have this ascending a couple of levels through Lissaris fasciculus. And then at that point, it's going to enter and synapse on this next cell body. So the next cell body is located in Rex lamina 1 and 2. Remember, Rex lamina 2 is substantia gelatinosa, which is a very prominent one. And then Rex lamina 1 just also has pain and temp sensation there. So now that it's synapsed, the next cell body is going to send fibers that decussate through this structure, which is the anterior white commissure, to enter the spinothalamic tract on the contralateral side. And from there, the spinothalamic tract moves up through the medulla, through the pons, through the midbrain. We haven't synapsed at all here, until it reaches the VPL of the thalamus. So VPL is everything that comes from the body for sensation versus VPM is the head. I've always just remembered that VPL, I think L for legs. I don't know if you have a better way of remembering it, but we're going to be in the VPL. From there, then, we're going to travel up through the internal cortex, like all ascending sensory information, through the corona radiata, which is here. And then because we were the leg, we'll go up towards midline in the sensory homunculus into our primary sensory cortex. So one more time. Pain comes from the foot through the first dorsal root ganglion. Remember, this is a pseudo-unipolar, so there isn't a synapse here. This is just where the first cell body is. And it moves up, and before synapsing, ascends a couple of levels in Lissaris fasciculus, where it will then synapse on Rex lamina 1 and 2. It will decussate in the anterior white commissure, and then travel upwards in the spinothalamic tract, all the way up, till it reaches the VPL of the thalamus, at which point it will again synapse there, and then send fibers through the internal capsule, the corona radiata, and into the primary sensory cortex. So that's the anterolateral system. Just remember that this one's important because it decussates very early in the spinal cord versus the dorsal columns, which we'll learn in a second, actually decussate up much higher in the medulla. All right, guys.